Here are my 2 points. 1,
if you're buying.
And number 2,
if you're selling. If you're not quite sure where to start.
Thank you for doing a good job as always, and your analysis is spot on.
Talk to Dan Gemus and his team. Find them at dangemus.com. And now, filling in for Dan Gemus, your host, Joyce Blackmere.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I'm Joyce Blackmere, Director of Sales with the Dan Gemus Real Estate Team, filling in for Dan this weekend. And I have Aaron Blackmere in studio with me as well. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy that you're here too.
And you know what makes me happier?
What?
62 days until hockey season starts.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
There you go.
Hopefully cool you off for the warm day out there.
Yeah, it is pretty warm, isn't it?
It is.
Again. We have Monica Bunde on the line, waiting patiently for us to finish our conversation. Hi, Monica. How are you?
Hi, guys. No, you're too funny, the two of you together. I love it. How are you both doing?
Good. How about you?
Great.
Fabulous. Are you and Lou hockey fans?
Lou is a hockey fan, and by default, then I become one. So,
you're a chameleon.
Yes, yeah. I do like to watch it. It is interesting. But, I wouldn't just watch it on my own. No.
Okay, fair. You know what? To be quite honest with you, unless the Wings are on, I wouldn't watch it by myself either. And I'm also not going to run down to the TV just because the puck
right.
drop. I don't know.
Same.
We're all a Wings fan,
though, too. Yeah. Lou loves the Wings he used to be a Toronto fan, but now he's because I think our proximity to Detroit, so now he's a Detroit fan. So.
Awesome.
So
smart man.
You wised up a little bit.
He did, yes. I will tell him
that. All right. Well, maybe we should go get on topic here. Monica,
okay.
you wanted to talk about some decades worth of staging and decor.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about, we always talk about what to do with home staging, top 10 tips, whatever. Those are always great. But there's such an evolution of home staging that I don't even know if we've ever talked about it on the show. So I just want to talk a little bit about be about 7 minutes. So home staging over the decades. So the term home staging we almost use always when we talk about property selling, and it has a rich and fascinating history. Fascinating to me anyway because I love home staging and decorating. And what started out as simple advice, in the early days, even in the 70s, advice from realtors was literally just to tidy your home up before a showing. And that has morphed into a full-blown industry that significantly impacts the real estate market and, more importantly, the selling value of a home. So it's funny because in the early days, even in the 90s, it was just clear your counters, put a bowl of lemons on the counter, and just keep it clean. And that was enough to sell and to get a great price. But now there's so much more psychology in marketing to home staging. So when we start in the early 70s, there was a gal named Barbara Schwartz, and she kind of coined, I guess, the term home staging and normalizing the staging concept. And a gal in the UK, her name was Anne Maurice, and she had a show called House Doctor. It aired in 1998, and I kind of remember it. And that was kind of how home staging took off in the early 2000s even. There was also, if you guys remember the show Sell This House? That was a UK show, and it was broadcast in 2003. And I remember watching it, and it was now looking back, it's almost cringeworthy with some of the decor that they did and some of the things. But that's how it all started.
I used to watch it too.
Yeah, I know. I loved it. But that was kind of how it started. The core idea remains the same from the 70s up until today, and it is basically present the property in its best possible light. So if we go back to the 60s, that was the era of experimenting with bold colors and patterns. And it was the mid-century modern style that was prominent then, featured clean lines, minimalistic forms, and natural shape of the furniture. And it was also our space age aesthetic. So there was some decoration and decor that was inspired by our space exploration, going to the moon, the futuristic elements. There was the sunken living rooms. Do you remember the Jetsons? And that was on TV at that time. The escalator in our home, and we wanted a computer to do our vacuuming, and we wanted to just say out loud, hey, turn on the radio. And now we have all of those things, which is kind of crazy that just like whatever that is, 70, 60 years ago, that's what we were hoping for, and now today we have it. So that's kind of fun how that has morphed. In the 70s, we saw a shift towards more earthy tones and textures, and it was the hippie, bohemian style, phase. So it was, we layered rugs, there was colorful textiles, eclectic accessories. That was the macrame age, and the plant hanging macrame beholders, which is all back today.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's all coming back.
Right? I know. When I tell you about this stuff, you're going to be like, but that's now, and that's now, and it's like crazy how everything has literally come back, but just changed slightly. That was also in the 70s was the still with the space age aesthetics. And I remember bright colors. So my bedroom, I had like a red carpet in my bedroom. My brother had a blue carpet. This is when we were younger. Blue plush rug in our living room, and it was like, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, there was so much color. It was crazy in the 70s. The 80s brought us kind of a complete change, and it brought in this country chic, and it was like florals, the ruffles, the pastel colors. It's like we just embraced we brought grandma back, and she just started decorating for all of us. But I do remember
that was my mom, pastel pink, everything.
Pastel pink, yeah. It was wallpaper borders, just really like floral cushions and curtains, and all different, but somehow it went together. It was wild. It was a wild time. The 80s were wild. The 90s brought us back to a more minimalistic focus on comfort, and I think it was probably because of all the craziness of the 80s that we were like, okay, let's just calm this down. But it was more minimalism, a less is more approach. So we focused on simplicity, functionality, neutral tones, which is very much what we're seeing today in decor. So 30 years later, again, the same type of minimalism is coming back. It was also the shabby chic era. Do you remember when we were buying vintage items and painting them pink, and it was just a very cozy time, like the Pretty in Pink movie. It was, we all wanted that look and feel, and that was like your early 90s.
I wasn't a fan of that.
What was that, Aaron?
I wasn't a fan of all the pink.
Oh, no. Yeah, I believe it. I know. It was a lot. But then in the 2000s, we changed. We took a turn because the millennium saw globally inspired influences. There was the industrial style, exposed brick, metal accents, reclaimed wood. So that was in the early 2000s. And 20 years later, we're still seeing that. We're seeing unfinished kind of furniture and whatnot. It was also the global influence because we had the internet. We could see what other people in Europe were doing for furniture, and so we were bringing elements from around the world into our home. That was in the early 2000s. And then in 2010, the decade was still about keeping the space functional yet stylish. And this I call our IKEA decade, because we were all at IKEA, buying up everything. It was simplicity, the use of natural materials. What also was super popular in the 2010s, and I remember this decade, I went right through it, the farmhouse style. And it was rustic charm and comfort. And that was super popular in the 2010s. And now we're still early into this decade, into the 2020s. But some popular trends that have appeared are the sustainability or sustainable design. So the growing focus on the environment, sustainable and eco-friendly designs, using recycled materials, the energy efficient appliances. Those are all gaining popularity. From what we're seeing in this decade. And a lot of the things from the more simpler decades, the sleek lines, the decluttered, simpler colors. We're we're using the bright colors as pops of color, but not really and especially in staging. In your own home, you can do all the pops of color that you want, but in staging, we're still very simple design trends, just like kind of in the 90s and even going back into the 80s when it was like just a minimalistic time. So to summarize, with all these decades and design trends, which can be so overwhelming, you're like, what do I do? Home staging follows all of those design trends. Like, we don't go back to design, the space age time, because we're not in that time. So we're doing home staging follows the trends that are in this decade. And so my top three, what I always say is, no matter what you do, declutter, clean, and do what you want to your home for what you see in someone else. Like, if you're going to look at homes and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this home, this is amazing, do that to your home if you're selling your home. So that's kind of like the home staging through the years. It's super interesting to look back at over 60 years and see some of the things we've brought forward 60 years later. It's just crazy to me. But so that's just that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's very cool to see. Monica, if people have questions, they want your expertise, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, they can reach me on Instagram. It's Create Home Staging, and they'll find me there. Or they can reach out to Dan's office, and then Dan they can get my number from you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect.
Yeah,
well,
awesome.
Thanks for sharing all of that. It is very interesting.
Nice little trip down memory lane there.
Yep.
It was. Yeah. You probably remember your mom's home changing and grandma's home, and that was, the different decades. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun researching that.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that. We appreciate
guys.
you, and we appreciate your help.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Well, have a great afternoon. That was Monica Bunde from Create Home Staging. She does a lot of work for our team, and we appreciate her very, very much. Mm-hmm. We need to take another quick break, and when we come back, we have Christian Janice from Simply Clothes joining us with a legal tip that's important for buyers and sellers to be aware of and have an understanding of. So there's still more to come right here on the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.